Welcome back. It's Friday morning, 11 o'clock. We're going to talk about keto and intermittent fasting today. So hopefully you have some questions. We have a lot of callers. We have people on social media. And of course, I have to give you a little disclaimer. Anything that I say is really meant for educational purposes, to do your own research, for you and your doctor to discuss, because I'm not going to diagnose any diseases. This is just my opinion. So that said, we're going to get started. There's a couple topics I want to talk about throughout this hour. One is the macros, especially the fat macros. There seems to be a lot of confusion on that. Secondly, we're going to talk about, do calories matter, especially when you're trying to lose weight. All right, so we're going to jump right to Stefan from Florida. You had some questions about supplements. Go ahead, Stefan.
Hey, hi, Dr. Berg. Thanks for taking my call.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's a default question, basically. On your supplements, it says take with meals 3 times a day. So my question is, what if I'm doing 1 or 2 meals?
Okay, so...
And the second part of the question is about the electrolyte powder.
Yeah?
I bought it, and if I'm eating 15 cups of veggies a day, leafy veggies, do I still need to take it? And is there such a thing as too much potassium to worry about?
Okay. These are good questions, and I'm going to answer those in just a second. Well, it looks like the mic is on the external, so I don't know if anyone heard your question.
Yeah, actually they did.
They did? Okay, good.
Through your mic, but
so
Dr. Berg,
I'll let you work on this as I answer the question. Okay. So you want to know, what about your supplements? If you're taking the supplements and with food, for example, and then you go less meals, you're doing intermittent fasting, like what do you do? You know, really the supplements, there's just a couple that you need to have with meals. One is the gallbladder formula after the meal, Digest Plus before the meal, and everything else, excluding the sleep aid, which you take before you go to bed, does not have to be taken with meals at all. So if you're eating less meals, it doesn't matter. You can take them whenever. The other point I want to make is that as you do intermittent fasting, the need for supplements and nutrients goes down to the point where you need less and less because your body is being more conservative. So the amount is going to be less. But you also had a question about potassium, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So what was the question about potassium? Now it's working.
Yeah, if I'm already doing 15 cups.
Okay. You're doing 15 cups of...
Yeah.
Wow, that's pretty good. And you're asking, do you need...
do I still need the powder?
Okay. Not if you're doing that much. Now, if you're doing like between 7 and 10 cups of salad, you're going to get pretty much all your potassium. However, let's say, for example, you have rheumatoid arthritis, or you have sleep problems, or you have some blood pressure issues, or you have severe insulin resistance, then you can take the powder just as the icing on the cake. I'm sorry, I don't want to talk about icing, but just to enhance things. But if you're getting it from the vegetables, you probably don't need it externally very much, unless you're trying to correct something. All right?
Okay. Thank you so
Awesome.
much.
Thanks for your question. Okay, cool. All right. Hey, Brian, you're from Maryland. You had a question about bilirubin. Go ahead.
Dr. Berg, the man. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing fantastic. So I got my blood test the other day. I've been on your eating program for about 7 months. Done really well. Lost about 65 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, done very well. Inspired a lot of people to actually follow you. But anyway, everything was great except for my bilirubin levels. The levels, it's supposed to be, the scale says that 1.2 milligrams per deciliter is the max. I'm at 1.8.
Okay.
And I'm wondering what that could be all about. Somebody said to me that it's possible that it's because I was doing 1 meal a day, and it was literally 24 hours when I took the test, that might be a contributing factor.
Got it. Do you have any constipation at all?
No.
Okay. Do you get any bloating?
Not really, no.
Okay. Okay, so this is what I would do, Brian. It's usually kind of something's backing up to the gallbladder and liver. I think that I would retake that test in about a month, and I think it's going to be normal. When you make this adjustment to keto and you're adapting, there's one point I want to bring up. You're going to be losing fat. Obviously, you lost a lot of weight. In the fat cell, you have triglycerides and you have some cholesterol. And what happens, the triglycerides can be used for fuel, but not the cholesterol. And the body will hold on to that cholesterol in the cell for a period of time, and then all of a sudden it'll dump it. It'll dump it through the system, and then it ends up in the liver, where your gallbladder has to kind of work a little bit more to dissolve and deal with all this extra cholesterol. That's one of the reasons why your bilirubin might back up, or you might have some temporary high LDL cholesterol, because everything is kind of being dumped from the fat cell, because it has to come out to the body somehow. So it's not a problem. It's just that you probably want to keep your vegetables high, let it do its thing, and possibly even take a little bit of gallbladder formula at the end of the meal, just to kind of dissolve any excess coming out. And that's one of the reasons why sometimes people freak out, because like, oh my gosh, I have this thing in my liver, my LDL is high. Well, that's purely coming from the fat cell. That's normal. It's not a problem. But for you, I think it's a temporary thing. I would retest it in about 6 weeks, and I think it should be normal, Brian. Cool. Thanks for your question. So let's go to Indiana. Latay, I think your name is. You had a question.
Lita.
Lita.
Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi, how are you?
I'm fine. I have about 5 or 6 really weird symptoms that's been with me for quite a while, a couple of years, I'd say. I started doing keto about 2 months ago, and intermittent fasting, and I'm feeling much better, but I still have these really weird symptoms, and I'm fairly active, but when I exercise, I get blue around my lips.
Okay.
That worries me.
Okay. Okay, so you have that?
Okay, and then at the moment, I'm having light flashes on the left vision. Even when I close my eyes, I see it if I move my eyes. And then when I'm blinking, my left eyelid will remain closed sometimes. Sometimes I have to think about opening it. But anyway, that's... And then I have problem with my tongue. Sometimes I feel like it's too big for my mouth, even underneath. Sometimes when I'm eating a salad or a meal just in general, I'll bite the underside of my tongue, and sometimes the top part of my tongue.
Okay.
And so but there's a few other ones, but these are the ones that are really have me worried.
Got it. Well, let me just kind of give you my 2 cents on this. Now, of course, I'm not really getting a full history, so I just want to just tell you kind of my gut feeling of what's happening, because to really evaluate this, I would want to know your history, what happened, and get more data. But because we're on this call, let's just kind of jump right in. A couple things. It sounds like your eye is a little sticky, which usually means that it's not that you're dehydrated, but your essential fatty acids could be low, because that really supports the glands in the eye, the liquid that comes out of the eye, because there's a part vitamin A, there's certain fats that come out through the oils. And so even like with a vitamin A deficiency or an essential fatty acid deficiency, your eyes can get really sticky, and that can also affect the tissues in the tongue, the mouth, the lips. So I'm thinking that you need either more essential fatty acids, and you can do flax oil, fish oils, like either that, or you're consuming them, you're not digesting them, so you need some gallbladder help, because you need more bile to help break that down and absorb these fatty acids. So that's what I would look at. So either the digestion of fats or adding more of the healthy fats in there, omega-3 fatty acids, and I had a lot of videos on that. All right, well, thanks for your call.
Hey, Doc, by the way, we've got a few questions queued up from social media when you're ready.
Yeah, I'm ready. I want to know what do we have from social media coming in now?
Okay, first of all, we have social media from all over the world: Georgia, Vancouver, South Africa, Idaho, Germany, Florida, and on and on.
Wow.
All around the world, your fans say hello. And
Awesome.
then specifically to Kim on Facebook, can her 80-year-old mom, how can she cure extreme foot and leg cramps?
Okay. And also, as a side note, Steve, did you put that link up yet underneath, or are you still working on that?
Let's see. I am working on it, but it's going to be up shortly. We do have another link that everyone's excited about, and I've been playing that, but I'll get the next one up, and then I'll give you a high sign when it's ready. And
Okay.
you can expand
Good.
on it. Thank you, sir.
So, hey, Kim, get the cramping. Your mother has severe cramping. Now, it would be nice to know if she's taking any electrolytes, because the biggest thing that happens, and it would also be nice to know if she's doing keto, because there's a lot of variables in here. Typically, if you get cramps, you need more electrolytes. The big one is potassium. Another big one is magnesium, those two. And you usually get those from these things called vegetables, right? And which people don't eat enough of. And then I also sometimes add calcium in there if I need to, whether a calcium, magnesium, and bam, that usually works really well. The other thing that it could be as well is a little bit of sodium. So all of these electrolytes could cause a cramping, because if you think about what a cramp is, it's an overcontracted muscle, and the electrolytes allow the muscle to relax and contract. So the muscles that the minerals that allow the muscle to relax are like magnesium and potassium. The mineral that allows the muscle to contract is calcium. So, but it could be either or. So I would do that. I have this electrolyte powder that really works good on that. So that usually should handle it most of the time. I also would look for side effects from medication, diuretics that could pull up potassium. I would also look at vitamin E and B1. Those two can be a problem with cramps. All right? Good. So, all right, Steve, do we have anything else in social media? Do we have another question coming up that I need to answer?
I think you better. Let's see. Antoinette actually is making, and she is admitting to failing on keto after 7 weeks, and reports that she's having no fun, and she's ready to go right back on. So for anyone thinking that there's joy off keto, Antoinette says that that's not so.
Well, let me just make a point on that. Yeah, it's like it's almost good for you to go off occasionally just to see what you feel like, because it'll then convince you that I need to stay on, or convince you to need to stay on. So, yeah, I'm glad you experienced that, and it's kind of like it's really good to have a person on their own cognitive function decide to do this because they feel better and they know it's the right thing to do, especially if you end up kind of testing the waters and maybe you cheat and you go back and cheat and go back and forth, which we don't want you to do. So, with that being said, we're going to go right to Jennifer from North Carolina. Go ahead, Jenny.
Hey, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
First of all, thank you for what you do. It's changed my life and the lives of so many others,
Awesome.
based on what I see on the posts of your followers. But I'm 44 years old. I have adrenal ovary body type.
Mm-hmm.
I've been doing keto for about 6 months. I'm down like 30 pounds. I'm doing 2 meals a day with a 4 to 6 hour window. And I do indoor fitness walking 5 miles a day, 3 to 5 times a week. And around the 2-month mark, I started experiencing significant hair loss.
Mm-hmm.
So at the 4-month mark, I started with the trace minerals, the nutritional yeast, the kelp, vitamin D3, K2. I always take apple cider vinegar and lemon juice in warm water with each meal, to which I recently started adding a grass-fed beef collagen.
Mm-hmm.
And then I take the electrolyte powder, usually like once a day. I bumped up my protein. My hair loss, it's better, but I'm still losing it, and it's to the point where I'm getting like really concerned about it now.
Okay, so I have a question. Do you have any problem with your gut, like your history with your intestines or your friendly bacteria or your digestion?
I was diagnosed with IBS many years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but since trying to start a family about 10 years ago, I learned that the symptoms I was experiencing
Hello?
was really Are you there? Can you hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Okay. So about 10 years ago when I started to start a family, I learned that my IBS symptoms were really significant endometriosis.
Okay.
So, but other than that, I'm pretty regular, and sometimes I do get bloating around the time of like 1 week before my period.
Got it. Okay. So here's a little tip. Sounds like you're taking the minerals, you're taking more protein, you're taking apple cider vinegar to digest the protein, taking the B vitamins, the trace minerals. So you have all the raw material, and if it still is a problem, then most likely there's an absorption problem more lower down in the intestines, because you need good flora to be able to absorb things like biotin and even the trace minerals. So what I would do, and I hate to overload you with one more thing, but if you go online and find, it's called Effective Microbes. I don't really have there's like a couple brands. Effective Microbes. It's a probiotic that's not based on dairy, but if you take that before you go to bed, it goes into the system. There's all these synergistic microbes that will start to build up and start you really increasing the bioavailability of all these nutrients, so it really kind of goes in the tissue. So you're actually supplying the nutrients, but I think it has to be an absorption problem because you have a history of the gut, and you could need some more work on that. The other thing that also works, and I think you're already doing this, but if you're eating twice a day, that would be good. Just make sure your window is shorter. We have a longer fasting, because that would be autophagy, and you can actually improve your absorption of protein if you do that overall. Okay? Thanks, Jennifer. And I think my mic, I can hear, and it kind of comes in and out. I don't know if it's working or not, if people can hear me. I would imagine they are. Okay, good. So, hey guys, so just so you know, I have a really cool link to download this. This is called Keto Essentials. You should check it out. And it gives you all the foods, the do's and the don'ts, what you should eat, the list of foods that get you into ketosis with some examples of meals. Especially if you're new to it, just download this thing. It's pretty cool. And that way you'll know what to eat. Okay? So I want to go to Rachel. She's been waiting for close to 59 minutes from California. Go ahead, Rachel.
Good morning, Dr. Berg. I hope I can get this out right. I'm having diarrhea every time I eat the salads.
Yeah.
So I stopped eating a salad. And I started this program 7 months ago, and I was doing pretty good with the salads, but then all of a sudden this happened. And I just can't eat any of the salad, and then I develop a viral infection that I can't get rid of.
Wow.
And I've been buying over-the-counter and natural foods medication for it, supplements for it. But it's better, but it hasn't gotten well. I have a lot of mucus in my chest that I can't get completely rid of, and so that's my problem. I have a lot of things wrong with me. I also had diabetes, and they stopped me from metformin because that was giving me diarrhea.
So I have a question.
Sure.
Are you doing keto and intermittent fasting?
Yes, I am, and I went from 3 meals to 2, and I was feeling good, and then I went from 2 meals to 1, and drinking the vinegar and the lemon and doing everything you suggest, even getting some of your recipes, and then this happened, and I have had this viral infection. It's going to be about 11 days.
Okay, so let me give you some tips. Let me give you some tips on this, Rachel. Here's the problem with viruses. They're actually not really alive. They're a piece of genetic material that's wrapped in a sac that tends to come out when your resistance is low, when you're sick and tired and get a little bit older. It comes out and it's out of remission, creates the havoc. It goes through usually a cycle, maybe 10 or more days, and then it kind of goes back in remission. But it's usually activated by high stress and cortisol. So if there's anything stressing you out, anything, look at that, do something to fix that, and that is the best thing for viruses. I mean, you could take things like monolaurin, which is an extract of coconut, that's good. You can take trace minerals for viruses, it works good with kids. But I think I would look at the stress component. The other thing with the vegetables is that some people just don't have the good flora yet to digest these. So you're going to have to probably steam some, have fermented, build up your flora first, and go light and gradually increase as your gut can handle all that fiber. So I would not eat a lot of vegetables at this point. Have steamed and then gradually increase it. What might be good is, just like I told the last person, find a liquid probiotic that is non-dairy. There's one called Effective Microbes, and take a little bit before bed. That'll slowly build up your immune system. But it's really stress that activates these viruses. So watch some of my videos on that as well. Thanks, Rachel. All right, so let's go to Candace. You're from Austin, Texas. You had a question. Go ahead, Candace.
Hey, Dr. Berg. Thanks for taking my call. Really enjoy your show and your videos. I have been doing the, I'll say, LCHF for about 9 months now, and the reason I phrase it that way is because when I started, I would do real strict keto for 5 days or so and then go off on the weekend because it was just very difficult. And I'll give you a little background. I'm 5'11", and I weigh 340, and I've lost a total of about probably 15 pounds. I've gone down a size in 8 months' time. And so basically what I'm asking, it's like I have kind of immersed myself in this, and I've listened to multiple experts out there as well as yourself, Rob Wolf, Leanne Vogel, and everybody kind of has a slightly different viewpoint and approach and what they recommend. And, a lot of them say that being in constant ketosis is really not the goal, that it really should be more of a, your goal should be to be able to go in and out easily. And so I'm just wondering, why I haven't seen more of a change as time has gone by. And I will say this is the reason I've stuck to it. I'm doing this because of how I feel. Mm-hmm. I'm 46. This is the first time in my life that I can tell you I have not been controlled by food.
Wow.
I've lost weight a million times. I've done Weight Watchers and lost 70 pounds. I've done, you name it, I've done it that's out there. But then the weight always came back on because the sustainability of it was not there. And so I know for a fact this is how I should be eating for my health. But it's like now I'm at that point that it's like, okay, I've been doing this a long time. And, and I have periods of doing it really strictly. Like I will be solidly, keto 100% for, as much as 2-3 weeks at a time. And there's no change at all.
Okay.
And when I say I go off, it's not like I go crazy and go off. It's just like I might have potatoes or, have a couple of bites of a dessert and then that's it. And so I just feel like I'm obviously extremely insulin resistant, and I feel like I'm missing a piece.
Got it. Now, question: how intermittent fasting? How much of that are you doing?
I have done that for at least 6 months. I do 2 meals a day. Mm-hmm. Now, what I do in the morning is basically a bulletproof coffee with either grass-fed butter, MCT oil, or coconut oil, and that's my coffee in the morning. And then I have, my eating window is about 6 to 7 hours. Okay.
All right. Good questions. Let me just give you my 2 cents on that.
Okay.
Okay. So here's the thing. You probably want to lose more weight. You want to lose more weight. So we need to do more ketosis, like not less of it, because when we go out of ketosis, we're not going to lose weight. So ketosis is the process where your body is using your fat for fuel. So we want to stay in ketosis until you hit your goal. Now, I did a video on this recently. Sometimes it's hard to find certain videos, but here's a little secret, and I think you're missing. If you've dieted many years and your metabolism is slow, and you potentially have a thyroid problem, and you're going through menopause, then you need to do this right here. And you want to use the fat to get into ketosis to adapt, right? And now that you're into ketosis and you're on your way, now is the time to start decreasing the amount of fat in the bulletproof coffee. Nix the fat in the bulletproof coffee. Don't put anything else in the coffee, maybe a little tiny cream or a half and half, but not any other fat. Why? Because your body's going to turn that into fuel, and if it's turning that into fuel, it's not going to go after your own body fat storage. So we want to actually go lower on the fats, don't add any extra fats, don't add any extra exogenous ketones as a supplement, because all this can be used as a fuel. We want your body to be forced to use its own stored fat only. Now, as far as the eating window, I think it's too long, 6 to 7 hours. I think you need to shorten it to probably 4 hours. Go for that, and even increase a little bit more food to go from one meal to the next. So that's what I would do till eventually you can even go to one meal a day, even if it's like spread out over a whole hour and a half or even 2 hours. That would be the ideal scene for you. I think that's what it's going to take to get you to lose weight based on your metabolism. I've done this before. It really works, and especially if you're over 300. Okay? Thanks, Candace. Appreciate your question.
Doc, by the way, we have some action here. First of all, we pasted into YouTube the link for the survey that you wanted to tell folks about.
So let me just bring that up right now then. Hey guys, so I'm seriously considering doing a keto summit in the fall in DC. If you've never been to DC in the fall, it is simply gorgeous and you need to come out. And be nice to meet with you finally. And so I put a little survey down below just to see if people are interested to come out to a summit. It would be a Saturday, Sunday at a nicer hotel in DC. But have a chance for me to go through A to Z keto, give you a lot of the advanced things. I would definitely bring in a couple really key people to do the seminar with me. But I think it'd be fun. And I wanted to see if you're interested. So there's a survey down below. Click it, fill it out. And then I'll send you the details. If there's enough people interested, we'll do something like that. All right? Cool. So now, what about social media? Do we have...
Well, we do. First of all, there's been a cry from management and from social media that I had a McDonald's cup on my desk, and in response to that, I crushed it angrily to make sure that that sort of icon no longer appears. I will suggest, though, that it was only unsweet tea, but it did have a bad artificial sweetener in it. So just to want the audience and the management to know that we do listen.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming clean there. And yeah, we'll, I'm glad we had a camera up there. Maybe that'll keep you guys in line over there.
Oh,
no,
it did. It was just a round outrage among the troops. But aside from my ill behavior, Eve wants to know, I think, how many grams are in 7 to 10 cups of vegetables, something that you talk about quite often.
Okay, so Eve, I couldn't tell you grams, but I could tell you ounces. 1 cup equals 1 ounce. Okay, so if you get those bags of lettuce, they have them like 8 ounces, 16 ounces, then you can just kind of convert them into cups. 1 ounce equals 1 cup, and that is a good measurement. Yeah. I mean, certain type of vegetables could weigh a little bit more than others, so I would just go by the cups. And then, so what I want to talk about right now, I want to interject something in between the calls. After I say one little point about romaine lettuce, was just been a recall for E. coli, so that lady that called previously, it could be some microbe causing the digestion from some of these vegetables that could be contaminated. Okay, all right. Now, shifting back, we're going to talk about macros a little bit. How many fat macros do you need? This keeps coming up because it's confusing, you get conflicting information. So here's the thing. Macros are like categories of like carbs, protein, and fats, right? So we have those 3 variables. When you're doing keto, we don't want to change the carbs. We want to keep them low. We don't want to it's not variable. If you're 18 years old and you're not trying to lose weight, but you want the benefits of keto and intermittent fasting, then you can do 50 grams. If you're 50 years old and you're going through menopause, go with 20 grams, okay? So 20 to 50 grams, that's the variable with that. And then as far as protein, you go from 3 to 6 ounces per meal. And it's interesting because some people experiment and they have a little bit more and they get really tired. And they want to know, how did I figure out 3 to 6? Just from working with a lot of people, that seems to work really somewhere in there. But if your metabolism is fast and you're 18 years old and you're an athlete, maybe you need 8 ounces per meal. But if you do too much, it can then stimulate insulin, okay, make you tired and create problems. Now, the fat is the big thing that I want to talk about, okay? Fat, how do you figure this out? I have the app that I've been promising you for the last several months. I just found it this morning is done. I just need to go through it one more time before I release it, okay? So thanks for your patience on that. But it's interesting how, you know, you keep looking through it and you find one little thing, one little confusion. So I want it just really kind of error-free before I release that. But you don't really even need the app to figure out your macros. All you need is like 2 or 3 days to figure out your macros. So here's some principles about the macros for the fat. Number one, if you have too much fat, you're going to have right shoulder pain, bloating, nausea, okay? If you don't have enough fat, it's going to be hard to go from one meal to the next. Next thing about fat is that you want to use more fat when you start keto and intermittent fasting for the purpose of going one meal to the next and adapting. As you get into adaptation, you want to cut the fat down. So really the only protein that you're consuming, the only fat that you're consuming is within the protein that nature is designed, or it actually comes with the whole package with the fat and the protein. So you don't really have to add fat once you start getting an adaptation. You're going to have some good amount of fat, but it's not going to be added like a keto bomb, that type of thing, especially if you want to lose weight. So it's kind of an experiment to test out as you do this, and you want to just make notes on a little piece of paper and go through like, okay, so I ate this meal. Wow, I was really hungry. I need to increase fat. So maybe increase I don't know, a 1/4 cup of nuts or 2 tablespoons of peanut butter. Okay, how did that work out? Oh my gosh, I was too bloated. I have to cut back the next meal. So in the next meal, you just cut back, and you keep documenting this in figuring out this sweet spot of fat that you need for your body based on your digestion, your metabolism, your strength of your gallbladder. And because what happens, a lot of people, they just don't learn from the meal that they just ate. They just kind of forget about it. So that's a real quick way to know. And if you're trying to maintain your weight and you don't need to lose weight, then you're going to prevent weight loss, you're going to have to be adding more fat. Keto bongs, do the coffee with the bulletproof oils and things. So definitely add that. But of course, then if you're not losing weight, don't add the extra fat in the coffee. Okay? So then we're going to go to the calls, and then I'm going to answer the next. I'm going to talk about do calories matter. Let's see if we could go right to Carrie from Greenville, South Carolina. You had a question. Go ahead, Carrie.
Yes. My question was, will taking your cruciferous capsules or drinking lemon or lime juice break a fast? And also, is lime juice as effective as lemon juice to keep kidney stones from developing?
Okay, good question. Yeah, all the supplements, the cruciferous supplements that you consume, that I have, will not break your fast, okay? Unless you're doing the protein powders, the meal replacement shake, the kale shake, those are like a meal replacement, okay, that will break a fast. But all the supplements will not break a fast. Your lemon water or lime water will not break a fast. It's just very, very low carbs. To prevent kidney stones, you can do lime or a lemon. It works exactly the same. It doesn't even have to be fresh. It could be actually, from the bottle. Okay. So thanks, Carrie. Good question.
Okay.
Cool. All right. So now let's go to Joe from Texas. You had a question, Joe. Go ahead.
Hey, how's it going?
Good.
Yeah, I started fasting. I think it was Sunday, and I started fasting around 7 p.m. and I'm still fasting right now. I haven't ate nothing. And it's Friday. And I've been drinking, water. I've been on the water fast.
Mm-hmm.
I've been drinking it with some trace minerals, a teaspoon of some salt.
Yeah.
And what I noticed is that every day in the mornings, I've been going to the restroom and, doing number 2. And also, I think my tongue is like white and dry. And yeah, I just wanted you to know if there's something going on, or is that normal?
Okay. Good question, Joe. When you're fasting that period of time, your body's going into something called autophagy, which is recycling old damaged protein and microbes, pathogens like yeast, fungus, mold, and things like that, and that can come up. It's not a problem. What you might want to do is add one thing to the mix, and that would be something called effective microbes. You can search them online. It's a probiotic in a little bottle that has a synergistic effect of like 400 different microbes. It's non-dairy, and you just take half a teaspoon in some water before you go to bed. And all night long, it will help grow and balance the friendly microbes to deal with the unfriendly yeast that could be developing on the tongue. But I think that's what I would do. Good question, Joe. Thanks. All right, so if we go to social media, what kind of questions do we have coming up, Steve?
All right, well, we've got an excited keto participant, but she's concerned that after 3 weeks on keto, she's walking every day and feeling very, very weak. What could the cause of that be, Doc?
Well, good question. I thought you were going to ask me something else. Like, you'd ask me something like, well, I have a friend that has this disease that very embarrassing, right?
Indeed. Yeah,
but,
just not following the instructions of the good doctor for some reason.
Right. So here's the thing. When you actually are feeling weak like that, you're in the adaptation phase. You haven't converted over into fat burning yet. To do that, to speed that up, you need to do intermittent fasting with the keto, exactly like I show people in my book, which I'm sure you have and you read cover to cover. But if you also take the nutritional yeast, you can get them in a tablet form, and a high quality electrolyte powder. That will instantly increase the energy, because when you go into this, your body requires more B1 and potassium and other nutrients because it's needed for the fat burning. So if you're deficient and you're trying to adapt, you're going to kind of be, it's called keto fatigue, you're just going to be tired. Very easy to solve. Just simply take some B vitamins in the nutritional yeast and the electrolytes, and it should handle it like that. If that still doesn't handle it, then what you have to do is take vitamin B5, and then that's going to be the icing on the cake. I'm sorry, I shouldn't talk about cake, but that'll actually kick you into it, because you might need a little bit more of that. And these vitamins actually act as cofactors to stimulate the metabolism. But give it a little more time. It should work fine. All right? So now let's go to Marilyn. Azaria has a question. Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, by the way. So I started keto at about 406 pounds. I was a very heavy smoker and a weekend binge eater, so not in the best of shape. But I started keto at the beginning of April, and then in the beginning of May, I woke up one morning and my heart started going crazy. I went to the emergency room, and you know, it just, they did an EKG, and my heart rate was, 240 up to 290, and I had a lot of tests done, and they couldn't find anything structurally wrong with my heart, but they did find an electrical problem called ventricular right outflow tract tachycardia, something like that. Now, they say that I was probably born with it, but it seems a little odd to me that it didn't show up until I had been doing keto for, I completely changed everything that I was doing. And so I'm thinking it had something to do with electrolytes or, hormones being released from fat cells, because I did lose about 15 pounds that first month there. So I don't know. I'm just, now it's very sensitive. I'm sorry, I'm rambling, but it's like completely ruined my life. I can't do intermittent fasting. I have to eat 3 times a day, or my heart starts going, and I just want to know what maybe I can do to fix it.
Okay, great. I'm going to answer that. I'm glad you called. Here's what happens. When you actually go from where you were at to ketosis, you're going from running on sugar to running on fat. realize that the storage of fluids with the sugar is huge, okay? When you store fat, it doesn't store fluid with that. But when you store glycogen, it actually also stores fluids. So as you switch over, it's almost like a diuretic. You're going to lose a lot of fluid. Now, this is another reason why I really want people to read my book thoroughly before they do keto and really understand it, because especially if you're a binge eater and you're that much overweight, you have nutritional deficiencies, definitely electrolyte deficiencies. So everything becomes magnified when you do this, especially if there's some kind of weakness within the electrolyte parts of or electrolyte fluid in the body, and then you are predisposed to it. Because I think what happened, you dumped a lot of fluid. With that fluid, you lost a lot of potassium. And a potassium loss, potassium is the kind of the brakes on the accelerator. They calm the pulse rate down. Potassium deficiency will increase heart rate. You get tachycardia, it goes up, 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 up. That's why even people that consume sugar, refined sugar, can deplete potassium, and then also their pulse rate can go up and pound harder. So I think what you should do at this point is do 3 meals a day. Start taking my electrolyte powder in a large amounts, probably like 4 things a day, and just take that, eat really healthy, do it correctly for a period of maybe a month to 6 weeks, because you have to build up these electrolytes in the cells. If you were deficient, it takes a while to build up. Then very gradually start going back to this program. That way you have all the electrolytes and you can monitor it with the help of your doctor and make sure it just doesn't happen. But I think you just lost a lot of fluid, and with that you lost the electrolytes, and that was because you're describing an electrolyte deficiency, basically. Okay? Good question. All right, so, and also, just as a reminder, all the information that I share with you is not meant to diagnose you. Check with your doctor before doing any of these things, okay? This is meant as things to research for yourself and entertainment. Okay, all right, so let's see here. We have Janet has a question from San Francisco. Go ahead, Janet.
Hi, Dr. Berg. It's really nice to actually talk to you live. I am 56. I am going through menopause. I think that it's been about 8 months since I've had like a real period. I'm bipolar 2 and have been taking antidepressants and mood stabilizers for almost 20 years, and they actually have been effective. So I've been completely stable. Since I've been doing keto, I started getting really depressed, and I had a cystic acne outbreak, which had also kind of gotten under control by having removed dairy several years ago. And I started spotting, and I ended up in the emergency room with a ruptured ovarian cyst. So I'm not really sure which comes first. The fact that, you know, my hormones have always been wacky, and I'm going through an adjustment, or if keto and intermittent fasting have something to do with this, because I want to stick with it. I want to get my inflammation numbers down. I don't want to have to be on statins anymore. So I don't really know what the inflammation is about, but I really am kind of in this place of what is happening. Is it hormonal from keto and intermittent fasting, or am I just going through a new stage and I have to readjust things? Right.
Okay, I can see this can be confusing. I'm just going to give you a couple little things, just my opinion on this. For cysts and things, you may want to research a really high quality sea kelp, because the iodine is great to help balance estrogen for cysts. Okay, so that should help the female ovaries. Secondly, the fact that you're bipolar and have some mood disorder issues probably means that you had some pre-existing insulin problems in the past that set you up for this, because it's definitely related to blood sugars. I mean, if you think about insulin resistance, it doesn't allow you to all the amino acids that then turn into neurotransmitters like GABA, serotonin, dopamine, things like that, which then are involved in a lower mood or bipolar. So as you go into keto with knowing that you have an insulin resistance problem, it might be a transition problem. That's why you might get, especially if you're on medication, everything's kind of artificially covering things up, and then you're going to do this, and things are going to shift, and it could take a little more time to get into keto. So with you, I think I would not do intermittent fasting at first. I would just change your diet, do 3 meals for a longer period of time, and then slowly take that first meal and start pushing it forward. Make sure that you're enhancing the diet with a lot of nutrition so you don't go through any type of side effect like fatigue and things like that. And then once you do that, over a period of time, get with your doctor, work together to adjust the medication, because the medication is altering the hormones, which will then alter the ability to do ketosis, because the side effects from the medications that you're taking can prevent you from getting into ketosis. And it's going to take more work. You just have to be cleaner. All right, Janet? Thanks. All right, so what do we have on social media, Steve?
Okay, so several trends have developed. Many folks who have had gastric bypass want to know whether keto is safe for them, Stephanie in particular on YouTube. And then another young lady has a damaged vagus nerve along with having had bypass surgery about 15 years ago. So there's a lot of chatter on there. Will this work with those conditions?
I hate that when you damage that vagus nerve, because the vagus nerve is called the wandering nerve in Latin. Because it wanders, it comes down from the brainstem and it just innervates all these different organs, and it controls something called the parasympathetic innervation. So it's rest and digest, and it kind of it affects the calming down and the stimulation of different things, because on the heart it might calm the pulse rate down, but in the digestion it could stimulate digestion. So it kind of works hand in hand, so that can be an issue. So if you damage that, I don't know how much damage you have, and I don't really know if it could ever come back. But let's just talk about gastric bypass in general. I think the reason why you had to do it in the first place was probably due to weight loss or wanting to lose weight. They found that when they do gastric bypass, diabetes symptoms kind of go away. And that's because we're having less stimulation of insulin, because we're having less food, and it's hard to eat the quantities of food. So the problem is, like, the medical profession is like, hey, we can improve your diabetic by just doing gastric bypass. But there's a much easier way. But since you've already done it, what I would recommend is do a version of healthy ketosis, intermittent fasting, because you're not going to be able to consume 10 cups of vegetables in your stomach, definitely at one sitting like myself. So you might have to do half of that, and you might have to add the trace minerals. You might have to add some gallbladder support. You might have to do intermittent fasting gradually, just because you're going to be so full on this, especially if you add a little more fat, that you're not going to be hungry at all. So you might have to just test the waters and see what you can do. But the fact that your stomach is smaller, it means that you're going to adapt to the adapt to this to the point where you're not going to need the large requirements, especially when you do intermittent fasting. So it can be done, but you're just going to have to eat less amounts of food. And the intermittent fasting is going to be very powerful to help you do this for sure, because you want that autophagy to take all the stress off the digestion and actually kind of heal that whole system that's been altered. But I think apple cider vinegar is going to be important too. All right, Steve?
Okay, that sounds great. I tell you what, one last trend here.
Yeah.
So first of all, a shout out to Liz, who's lost 100 pounds
wow.
This year and eats vegetables like you do, 7 to 10 cups a day. And at the same time, there are other folks that say that they're doing, the intermittent fasting and keto correctly, and yet don't seem to be getting any results. And maybe here's a clue to it. Rabia says, is it okay to have 6 sticks of celery? Is that okay? And I assume they're saying, can I do that when I am not, when I'm supposed to be in my fasting period? And perhaps other people are eating things in the time that is outside of the area that they're supposed to eat. So that's a guess, but maybe you can shed some light on those that have fantastic success and those that seem to be struggling.
Good. So there's a couple things that I want to just mention. I talk to a lot of people that tell me, well, I tried to do it, but it's not working, or it plateaued, and inevitably I find something that needs to be corrected. I'd say 80% of the time, it's in one of my videos that they didn't find, or it's in the book and they didn't fully read it. They're sort of doing it, but they're not fully doing it correctly because they're using parts of some other system and parts of my system and hoping it works. There's a couple things that I would look at. Number one, you want to do intermittent fasting and ketosis always together, not one or the other. Secondly, if you're not losing weight, probably your metabolism is slow and you have insulin resistance, which means that you're going to have to start cutting down the amount of fat that you eat, especially in the coffee, the bulletproof coffee, especially if you're adding things at the end of the meal, like fat bombs. And then the other thing is a lot of times people are consuming a little bit too much of these. They're not fat bombs, but they're like kind of treats with almond flour, which do tend to create bloating in the gut. And that could interfere with your ability to lose weight. So is there any type of bloating that can, maybe some fiber that you're not digesting that can hold water and keep you from losing weight as well? That's really common, or it could be a food allergy too. And then I look at the sleep. I also look at the time of intermittent fasting. For example, you want to push it to like 4 hours if you're doing 2 meals. In the morning and at night is not going to cut it. You want to push that together and maybe even 1 meal to really lose the weight. Because what you're dealing with is years of chronic bad eating, and to reverse that, you might have to go extreme eventually until it's fully healed. So that's what I'm going to suggest. I need to go to Kay Lila from Maryland. Go ahead. Kay?
Hi, Dr.
Hi.
Thank you for doing this. And your wife is awesome. I love watching her videos
Thanks.
with her.
Thanks.
But anyway, you also. I have been doing keto since January, and I lost about 40 pounds. And recently, I added in a workout regimen that's fairly aggressive in comparison to what I've done before. I do intermittent fasting, and I eat from 12 till about 8.
Mm-hmm.
And I am struggling so much to get what other websites say my macros should be as far as fat and protein in a day, eating twice a day. So I'm not losing anything right now. I don't know if it's because of my workout. It's a lot of weight, about 5 to 6 times a week, and I just added cardio about 4 times a week.
Wow.
So I'm just lost and confused, and I don't know what's happening.
So really quickly, just give an example of what you would eat in the, like with protein. Like how much protein would you eat in a given meal?
In a given meal, I probably would have 2 sausages.
Okay.
Will be 1, yeah.
And then how much? What's the quantity of vegetable?
Probably I'll have about a whole huge bowl of salad, or I'll have like some cabbage, like a bowl of cabbage.
Okay. And then fat. What do you eat for fat?
Butter I'll have in my cabbage. Gosh, that's the hard part. Mainly butter is my biggest fat source. I don't like avocados at all. So
okay.
I don't.
Do you eat anything else in that meal?
No, that's probably it. And I'll have a protein shake, which I add 2 tablespoons of peanut butter to.
Okay. Is that part of the meal too?
Yes.
Okay, and then
1 meal, yes.
All right. Do you do bulletproof coffee?
No, I don't.
Okay.
I do tea, but I have MCT oil in my tea.
Okay. That protein shake, is that part of the meal you told me or a separate meal?
No, that would be like the meal I just told you about. That would be like my first meal, and yes, I'll have the protein shake with that because that's right after I come from the gym.
Okay. And then are you hungry? Are you eating when you're not hungry?
Am I eating when I'm not hungry?
Yeah.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
No.
So you're hungry at the time when you have to eat, you're hungry?
Yes.
Okay. So I think what I would do, I think I would cut that protein shake out of the mix because I think you're having a little bit too much protein. And I would start taking the meals and then squishing them together because it's like your window is 12 and 8. That's too far out. So you need like ideally be 12 and 4
Okay.
or 12 and 3. I mean, that would be probably what you're going to need to start seeing some change. And then with the exercise, if you find that you're really sore or your sleep is off, then you're over-exercising. You want to cut that back a little bit, give your body a chance to kind of heal a little bit more, because too much exercise could also slow down your weight loss.
Okay. Okay, so 12 to 3, and see how my body responds. And if I'm tired, cut my workouts back and have a little bit more rest.
Yeah, and one last thing, and then I'll shut up. What you want to do is you want to make sure it's okay if you're having a hard time doing 1 and 3, it's okay to add more fat to go longer. But the key is you want that huge fasting window, for that huge, not window, but huge fasting time period to really kick it in. Okay? All right, good question. All right, and also guys, after this, I'm going to be on Facebook and our group, our Facebook lab, and also the membership site after this. So for those of you that are on the lab, don't go too far. And also download this little Keto Essentials. And also I have a survey down below. If you slightly might be interested in coming out to the Keto Summit that I'm thinking about doing in the fall when it's gorgeous around DC. Finally get to meet you, to see you. And let me know if you're interested. I put a link down below. Okay? We'll fill you in on the details. All right, so now I want to go to Rachel from Carville, Texas. You had a question. Right arm pain, right? Tendinitis? All right, can you turn down your mic, Rachel? Speaker? So Rachel,
So 12 to 3, and
Rachel, I'm going to have someone help you there, and I'm going to go right to Adel from Silver Spring, Maryland. Go ahead, Adel. Adele?
Good morning, Dr.
Good
Berg.
morning.
First of all, let me begin by saying you literally saved and changed my life as more than any other person in the world.
Wow. Thank you.
So my question, I've dropped close to 60 pounds.
Wow.
In 6 months. Yeah, it's been quite an amazing journey. But so my question is in regard, because I've been practicing strictly 1 meal a day on the keto diet. Is there like a frequency when I can move from 1 meal to 2 meals, or should I just stay on the 1 meal a day schedule?
Good question. Do you want to lose any more weight, or did you hit your goal?
I'm about 10, maybe 15 pounds to the promised land.
Okay, good. So here's what I would do. You can probably ride the wave at 1 meal until you hit your goal. Then if you want to add another meal in, you'd probably be okay with that. You can totally do that. And just, I would want you just to play around and test the waters. See what you do better. Some people are real comfortable with 1 meal a day. And if you start losing too much weight, you just add more fat in there. So that's what I would do. And I appreciate you getting great results too and sticking with it. So well done on that. So thanks for your question. Okay, so let's go to Rachel. Hey Rachel, you had a question.
Yes, sir. Hi, Dr. Berg.
Hi.
It's a pleasure to talk to you. I think you are phenomenal. You've helped me a lot. Okay, question. First off, I'm type 1 diabetic, and I just want to know, is this statement true? I cannot intermittent fast because I stop fasting when I take my insulin?
Okay. So did someone tell you that?
No, I've just figured that myself.
Okay.
Is that true? Or?
Well, here's the thing. You're a type 2 diabetic?
Type 1.
Type 1. Okay, so you're on insulin, right?
Yes, sir, and I've been doing keto. Sir?
Okay, you're on insulin, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so here's what happens. In a type 1, you don't have enough insulin, so you have to take insulin. Makes sense, right?
Correct.
And
yes,
because if you didn't, your blood sugars would go out of control, right?
Correct. Uh-huh.
So what we want to do with you is we want to correct the high sugars so the need for insulin is the least amount possible. So two things. You're doing keto, you're cutting out the carbs, which is awesome. But now intermittent fasting.
Yes, sir, and my sugars are great.
Awesome. So now the question is, why would you do intermittent fasting? Because every time you eat, regardless of what you eat, you're going to trigger insulin. So if you could do intermittent fasting, the need for insulin will go down even more. So that actually...
But I don't trigger insulin.
Well, if you don't eat, because eating in general, the more frequent time you're eating, the more times you eat, the more insulin is going to be needed to regulate the sugar.
Okay, got it. Got it. Okay, yes, sir.
So basically, if you practice intermittent fasting, diabetic type 1, your need for insulin will go down even more, which is going to be good because then you'll have the least amount of damage from the insulin that you're taking.
Okay, but I can intermittent fast.
Totally. Totally. It's going to be really healthy for you.
Okay.
And then make sure you do the
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do healthy ketosis with all the vegetables, because when you're type 1, potentially you could get more acid in the body, and you want to take those vegetables to counter that.
Yeah, I got to work on my vegetables. Okay, another question. I'm very confused on this. Okay, so carbs, 20 grams, I can do that, no problem. Is that carbs minus, is that net carbs? So carbs minus fiber, that equals 20 grams?
It's net carbs, but you can have unlimited leafy greens and salads. You don't count that into the mix.
Yes,
and
sir.
then,
Yes, sir.
And then definitely get my book and read through all the details, because I want you to make sure you do this 100%. Okay?
Oh, I've been doing it, and you're great, but I'm stumped on the fat. I think I'm eating too much fat, and you said to lower the fat.
Yeah.
But how do you lower the fat and eat your calories?
Well, when you're doing
when
you're doing intermittent fasting, the need for calories goes down. You don't need as many calories. Yeah. Yeah, because your body is adapting to them.
Body.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Rachel. I want to cover something now. Thanks for your call, because I have one more thing I want to cover, and then we're going to end off. And this is a question that, do calories really matter? And this kind of relates to your question, Rachel. You know, people say a calorie is a calorie is a calorie. Calories in equals calorie out. It doesn't really matter as long as your calories are low. That's false information, because we want to look at how the calories are influenced by biochemistry, by hormones, and they're differently. For example, carbohydrates will increase insulin. Protein will increase insulin. Fat does not really increase insulin too much. So right there, that's one layer of the onion peel. Then we have fats provide fuel and body tissue replacement. Protein provides fuel and body tissue replacement, hair, nails, skin, eyes, things like that. But carbs only provide fuel. So do calories matter? Well, we want to keep the carbs as low as possible, 20 to 50 grams. And we want to keep the protein moderate, because it too can stimulate insulin. But when we get to fat, that's the thing that's what really matters as far as calories when you're trying to lose weight, especially once you've adapted to ketosis. In that case, you want to adjust the fats lower and lower to the point where your body goes after your own fat and not the dietary fat. That's when calories matter. It's the fat. But not in the beginning, while you're doing it towards the end. Guys, I want to thank you for all your wonderful testimonials and success story and your questions. Thank you so much. I will be seeing you next week with Karen. Have a great weekend.